Good afternoon, Conference. It's a real pleasure to be here this afternoon, moving the motion as the Liberal Democrat parliamentary candidate for Guildford, which is part of the Blue Wall, where decent people who have voted Conservative all of their lives are abandoning them in droves, and instead they are backing us, the Liberal Democrats. And when you look at today's date, it will serve as a timely reminder of why that is the case. 1 year ago, Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng delivered their mini-budget. They crashed the economy, tanked the pound, and created mortgage misery for millions of hard-working families up and down our country. And what I found so insulting about their catastrophic mismanagement of government and the country was the sense that the rules didn't apply to them. And that's the overriding impression that the Conservatives give us time and again. One rule for them and another for us. Whether it was partying in Downing Street while telling the rest of us to stay home, lying about their tax affairs, or bullying their colleagues, taking their constituents for granted by refusing to resign, or abandoning to appear on I'm a Celebrity, or showing they simply don't get it, with rolls of golden wallpaper and a helicopter habit that, frankly, has gotten out of hand. The people of this country are sick and tired of countless Conservative sleaze scandals which rock our politics week after week. And to make matters worse, many Conservatives get rewarded for their own failure. Ministers who have resigned in sleaze and scandal are eligible for payments of up to £17,000, and failed Prime Minister Liz Truss can now potentially pocket up to £115,000 thanks to something called the Public Duty Cost Allowance Scheme. That is £115,000 for life off the back of barely 50 days in office. Conference, over the next 10 years, Truss's payout would fund almost 30,000 GP appointments. Her time in Downing Street was a national embarrassment, and so is that payout. That's why the Liberal Democrats are proposing limiting the Public Duty Cost Allowance to former Prime Ministers who have served for office for 1 year or more. 50 days just doesn't cut it. Doing so will mean we can spend more public money on free school meals and doctor's appointments, and less on propping up failed Conservative Prime Ministers. And that's what this motion proposes. Happy anniversary, Liz. So who followed Liz Truss to be the third Conservative Prime Minister in a year of chaos? Rishi Sunak, the man who promised to govern with integrity, accountability, and professionalism. He made that promise on the steps of Downing Street: integrity, accountability, and professionalism. And then he walked in the doors of Number 10, and what was his first act? He appointed Suella Braverman. So much for integrity. He appointed Nadhim Zahawi. So much for accountability. He appointed Dominic Raab and Gavin Williamson. So much for professionalism. That really set the tone for months to come, didn't it, Conference? Of course, one of the first things Rishi Sunak promised to do as well was to appoint an ethics advisor. But it was nearly Christmas before the time one was in post, meaning it had had 6 months without an ethics advisor in Downing Street, and you couldn't sum up the ethics vacuum at the heart of the Conservative government more perfectly than that. And when he did finally appoint his advisor, Sir Laurie Magnus, he did a botched job. The ethics advisor can only start an investigation into sleaze and scandals if Rishi Sunak gives him permission to do so. Why wouldn't he give the ethics advisor independence, Conference? Perhaps, if he had nothing to hide, he would have nothing to fear. So in today's motion, we will put this right. We propose a new scheme. The power to appoint the ethics advisor should ultimately rest with Parliament, not the Prime Minister. And when they're in place, they would be empowered to initiate their own investigations, and this would all be underpinned by the Ministerial Code, which we would enshrine in law. If you really care about standards in public life, you need to be prepared to take the tough decisions and show leadership like that. But sadly, Rishi Sunak seems too weak to do so. Nowhere was that more clear than his response to the Privileges Committee investigation into his predecessor, but one. This cross-party committee, one with a Conservative majority, published a report into Johnson's conduct that can only be described as excoriating. And faced with abusive attacks which Johnson and his cronies hurled at the committee, yet another attempt to undermine our parliamentary democracy, did Sunak stand up for what was right and back the committee's conclusions? No. He refused to, and it was shameful, spineless abdication of duty. We deserve and should expect far better from our leaders. And families across the country and all over the Blue Wall are taking notice. It's little wonder then in May, the Liberal Democrats took control of Guildford Borough Council. People are sick to the back teeth of this Conservative government. They are fed up of being represented by the Conservative MP Angela Richardson, who sits on the green benches alongside Raab, Zahawi and Braverman and Rees-Mogg. And that's why we're going to win this seat off of them at the general election. Conference, I'm looking forward to this debate and hearing your speeches, and I want to thank those who've tabled the amendments, and I encourage you to support these. All of us want politicians who don't just promise integrity, but act with it too, who do not believe they are above the law and do not think they can act with impunity. It should be a bare minimum, and the government seems to think that that's too much to ask. They have dragged public standards into the gutter, and they are laughing at it. So, Conference, I urge you, support this motion and the amendments today and help us to restore standards back in government once again. Thank you.